punishment, also known as the death penalty, has been a debated issue for years. Cassandra Cash made the claim that the death penalty that is used in the United States is ineffective and unreasonable. Ms. Cash supported these claims with 3 secondary claims. Those were, the death penalty causes monetary burdens, the death penalty is unlawful, the death penalty questions morals and ethics. My claim is that the death penalty that is used in the United States is effective and reasonable. My secondary claims is that the death penalty has monetary benefits are relatively small in reality. My secondary claim is that the death penalty is lawful. The death penalty may question moral and ethics, but this is a claim of value. And my last secondary claim is that Ms. Cash's evidence primarily from one source who knows how reliable it truly is. To start with, the death penalty having monetary benefits that are relatively small in reality. Life in prison is also extremely expensive, which is sorted in from the high cost of death penalty sorted here that says that Texas, with over 300 people on death row, is now spending an estimate of $2.3 million per case for the death row. But it also says that $2.7 billion on state prisons are being paid per year, which is more. And also each person serving a life sentence costs the taxpayers about $1.5 million. That's for each person in prison for life. Also, yes, there might be outrageous prices for lawyers and the court system may be congested, but the money spent is relatively small compared to how much our country spends annually on other affairs. For the U.S. federal spending budget, it says that annually we spend $768 million in Social Security, $670 million in the Defense Department, $615 million in discretionary, $461 million in mandatory, and $223 on net interest. And as I said before, $1.5 million for each person, $2.7 billion for state prisons, and $2.3 million for each person who's on death row, which is relatively small compared to how big the budget is. My second claim is that, secondary claim is that the death penalty is lawful. The Bill of Rights says that it is okay to get rid of, to take away someone's life due to due process. It says right here on the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States and the state within they reside. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of a citizen of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process or law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. I'm pretty sure that nobody gets put on death row without having due process of law. Also, it may cause biased jury members, but all the politics is biased, so that's not a very accurate assumption. The death penalty may question moral and ethics, but this is a claim of value. Yes, the family of the accused may suffer, but this is the accused's fault. If someone kills someone just because their family may suffer because they die too, doesn't mean that that's okay. Yes, it doesn't bring the victim back to life, but no one said it would. The whole point of having the death penalty isn't to make sure to bring the victim back to life, but to stop that person from killing yet another person. And it may be unethically harmful, but this is a question of value, not a claim of fact. My last secondary claim is Mrs. Cash's evidence, primarily from one source, who knows how reliable it really is. 3 of her 4 evidences were from the deathpenaltyinfo.org. I took a citation from deathpenaltyinfo.org on an article, which seems more like an opinion, and it is not an actual, I would say, peer review edit. So it's more like an update of what's going on, and it's by not a reliable author. And also I feel like it's because it's repetitive that it doesn't really show that she has a very accurate assumption about what is going on with that, or what accurate assumption of evidence to show that this is true. So to sum it up, I think that capital punishment is effective and reasonable, and this is why it is fine. Yeah. Thank you.
All right, all the structural stuff at the beginning is fine. I do think that you're previewing your arguments a little bit too much. You kind of remind us of what their individual points are, then you preview your responses to them, and then you get to the arguments and you're having to repeat yourself. You don't need to go that far. Just remind us, here are the points that they're going to make, and I'll respond to them individually. Keep it relatively simple. On the, you did argue at one point that you were going to show that the death penalty is effective, and I didn't hear any evidence on effectiveness. I just heard evidence on costs and lawfulness. So I'm not sure why you included that if you're not going to bother trying to demonstrate that it has the effect of discouraging crime or controlling crime or preventing people from committing further crime. It seems like those would be legitimate arguments to make, but they never get described. On the benefits argument, I do think you have a little bit of confusion on some of the numbers that you're reading because you keep using the term millions, and I'm sure that you're referring to billions. You mentioned like $786 million spent on Social Security. No. That's got to be a lot more than that. Now, if that's just the state of Texas that you were talking about, then maybe that would make sense. But I know Texas doesn't have a Defense Department, so it's got to be billions of dollars that you're talking about. So when you said millions, it's actually billions that you're talking about, which puts your argument in even more contrast. The other thing that I think you want to point out is that do a little math on this. They say it's 2.7 million for 2.3 million to prosecute a death penalty case, but it's 1.5 million to prosecute and keep somebody in prison for life. So the difference between those two is really about $800,000 per case. And $800,000 per case, that's less than the value of a single house in most cities in Southern California. So the idea that the state can't afford this because we'd have to pay as much as we'd have to pay for a house in Southern California to put this person on death row, that seems like another way to minimize that argument. And you've got the numbers there. You just need to make the comparison. On the argument that it's lawful, you use the 14th Amendment. I think there's also the same kind of argument in the 8th Amendment. Plus, there are court rulings. I didn't hear you refer to any court rulings on this issue, so I think that that's a little bit problematic. On the last point concerning the value argument, I thought you had a reasonable argument there that says it's value-based. The refutation is it's not the fault of the family. That's true, but the accused is the one who's responsible for this. It's not the state's fault. That's the way the breaks are. The same would be true if they went to prison for life too. So I'm not exactly sure how we measure that. The attack on the Death Penalty Information Center, I think, needs to be a little bit stronger. It seems very random and general here. All right, thank you.